When we last left William Lowndes Yancey in the previous episode, he had served 3 months in jail for killing his wife's uncle in a fight sparked by the Unionist Yancey's insult of a pro-nullification politician in 1838. Fast forward to October 29, 1860, just before Abraham Lincoln's election, when the Virginia fire eater Edmund Ruffin sent Yancey a flattering appeal. "All that we now need is another Patrick Henry. Doubtless we have many men in the South who, when they shall have once taken the right direction and means of effort, may compare with that great defender of freedom and his country's rights in patriotism and zeal and self-devotion. But you also are gifted, and in a markable and rare degree, with the power of eloquence, and through it with power to sway the popular will, which enables one man to exercise as much influence as thousands could without this means and power for putting their intellect and patriotism to public use. Will you undertake it? Will you be the Henry for this now impending contest?" What shaped Yancey's transformation from pro-Union manslaughterer to the Patrick Henry of secession? Part of it was the influence of his uncle, Jesse Bean, a prominent states' rights politician, and Bean's friend Dixon Hall Lewis, quite literally a heavyweight of the Alabama Democratic Party, who tipped the scales at nearly 500 pounds. With their support in 1840, Yancey and his brother Ben launched a weekly campaign newspaper called The Southern Crisis, devoted to attacking Whig presidential candidate William Henry Harrison. Yancey demagogued relentlessly on Tippecanoe's supposed abolition principles and gleefully reprinted a Cincinnati newspaper's allegation that the incumbent, Martin Van Buren, was a Northern man with Southern principles. In reality, both candidates had difficulty straddling slavery issues, and historian William J. Cooper writes that for Southern politicians of both the Whig and Democratic parties, successfully presenting their pro-Southern case formed only one half of their political task. To cement that success, they had to portray their political enemy, both individual and party, as less than fully alert in protecting the treasure of Southern liberty. Still, Yancey seems to have believed his own anti-Harrison hype. Yancey biographer Eric H. Walther writes that the prospect of a Harrison administration truly filled Yancey with dread and helped accelerate his philosophical conversion to the states' rights school. No longer did he claim that the federal government was sovereign. He now agreed with John C. Calhoun, Dixon Lewis, and their ilk that the Constitution was made up of none but specific powers granted to it by the several sovereign states. Like his old adversary and new hero, Calhoun, Yancey now sadly concluded that unless Northerners stopped abolition fanaticism, then a separation of the Union must take place. He did not yet advocate disunion, but by the summer of 1840, his unconditional unionism was dead forever. Harrison won the presidency, but Van Buren carried Alabama, doing especially well in Yancey's Coosa County. Yancey's efforts did not go unnoticed. During the 1840s, he served sporadically in elected office, with brief stints in the lower house of the Alabama Assembly, the Alabama Senate, and the U.S. House of Representatives, where his most notable action was engaging in a duel with Thomas Clingman, a North Carolina Whig who had opposed the annexation of Texas and taken offense to critical remarks by Yancey. Both men missed their shots and left feeling their honor had been sufficiently vindicated. But Yancey, who resigned from Congress in 1846 and became an outspoken, full-blown secessionist during the national debate over the Compromise of 1850, was more at home as an outside agitator than as a lawmaker. Walther writes that by keeping himself relentlessly in the public eye as an attorney, public speaker, state party organizer, and creator of secessionist organizations, Yancey successfully planted the idea that the Union existed only as a means towards certain ends, specifically white Southerners' rights and interest in slavery, and that if the Union ceased to fulfill its mandate, a glorious alternative awaited after secession. These ideas placed him at the center of a loose regional network of disunionists, men such as Robert Barnwell Rhett, James DeBow, Louis Wigfall, and Edmund Ruffin, and provided the foundation for his stance at the fateful Democratic Convention of 1860 and the national speaking tour that followed. During the late 1840s and 1850s, Yancey found Southern unity as elusive as John C. Calhoun had. As a delegate to the 1848 Democratic Convention, he tried unsuccessfully to get the nominee, Lewis Cass of Michigan, and the party to adopt a set of proposals he had drafted and that the Alabama State Democratic Convention had passed. The Alabama platform forbade Congress from interfering with the expansion of slavery into the territories and barred Alabama delegates to the National Convention from supporting any presidential candidate who failed to endorse the platform. When the convention overwhelmingly rejected the Alabama platform, Yancey and one other delegate stormed out. He adopted Calhoun's suspicion of political parties and was largely estranged from the Democrats for most of the 1850s, although he did align with them during the 1856 campaign to oppose the emergence of the Know-Nothing Party. This was partly because of his pro-immigration views, partly because he was disturbed by the party's stance against Catholics, and partly because he saw it as a fundamentally Northern party allied with abolitionists. Of course, the far greater threat to Southern interests came from the new Republican Party. Despite not carrying any Southern states, it came just 3 states shy of capturing the presidency in 1856. This raised the stakes in 1860, making Democratic unity essential, but Yancey again brought the Alabama platform to the convention, which was held in Charleston, South Carolina. This time he saw it accepted by the majority of the platform committee, only to be outvoted on the floor by delegates backing Stephen A. Douglas as the presidential nominee. This time Yancey's walkout was joined by delegates from 7 Southern states. A separate convention nominated Vice President John C. Breckinridge of Kentucky. Yancey vigorously campaigned for him across the country, even in the North, but predictably, Lincoln won the election with 39% of the vote and without the support of a single Southern state. Within a few months, 7 states, including Alabama, had seceded and sent delegates to Montgomery to form a new Southern Confederacy. Walther, in his book The Fire Eaters, writes, Yancey played a leading role in the Alabama Secession Convention, but after waiting 10 years for disunion, he briefly lost control of himself on the eve of his success. When one delegate suggested that secession was too important to be decided by a simple majority vote, Yancey proclaimed that Alabama's ordinance of secession, even if it be passed by the meager majority of one, would represent the will of everyone in the state. Furthermore, the champion of minority rights bellowed, "Those who shall dare oppose the action of Alabama when she assumes her independence out of the Union will become traitors, rebels against its authority, and will be dealt with as such." His outburst caused such chaos that the meeting had to adjourn for the day. After much wrangling, the secession ordinance passed by a vote of 61 to 39, and an exhausted Yancey wrote his brother Ben that, "I have no idea of ever again returning to public life." But soon, the incoming president, Jefferson Davis, would have just such an idea. The next episode will cover Yancey's sometimes surprising record as a Confederate diplomat and senator. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.